Так, мои дорогие,
So, my dear all, I suppose our seminar is growing and so much and is on the rise that, first of all, journalists always, when they meet Irina Yasina, secondly, our federal classes also have a session with Irina Yasina, and not because she's so wonderful, so knowledgeable and intelligent, educated, although this is also the case, although that is also the case. So, not because she is such and such, but when things are very hard, and I find it very hard right now, and there are friends, Ira like a friend, not in terms of age, but in spirit, she's my friend. And I've told her 100 times, and I've said so before this room, and I will give it again. The ability to hold your back straight and remain in shape, and not to lose your mind, and not to feel somebody is to blame. You can blame somebody for what is there without any questions. This is a great skill that only very few people know how to do it. Not to spread oneself and one's suffering onto others. This, in point of fact, is not only about courage, but it's also about an example how to keep in shape and without any form or without shape. Person just doesn't fall out of it, but I mean human things in him slip away, and in point of fact, the historical, philosophical and culture is all about how to stay in shape, how to stay in the framework, how to keep oneself up, even when it's impossible to do so. Ira is a good example of that. She makes other people happy. She makes other people laugh. She's always in good intellectual shape. And I would like to share this human event, with you. She will talk right now before you. I want her to be reserved in her language. Certainly.
Михайловна, спасибо огромное, как всегда. Вы находите такие теплые.
Dear Елена Mikhailovna, thank you very much. As always, you find such warm and beautiful words that I'm blushing. I don't know. I feel so embarrassed. Like in that joke. Thank you, Rebbe. You reminded me where I forgot my footwear. Elena just told me what I could start with. A joke, a very simple joke. A Rebbe is delivering a sermon in a synagogue, and then he says, oh, what nightmare, what a nightmare. Some of our parishioners were seen in the prostitute's house. And Rabinovich gets up, raises his finger and says, oh. And the Rebbe approaches him after the sermon and says, Rabinovich, what did your O stand for, Rebbe? You are a saint person. You reminded me where I forgot my shoes. So, Lena just gave me a hint. Recently, I had a wonderful, very warm conversation with Arseny Borisovich Raginsky from Society Memorial. I don't know what international, Russian, but things work in such a difficult manner that I do not understand. I love them dearly, and I absolutely revere what they do, but I'm in awe about what they do. And there was quite a hysterical campaign around them. Everybody was saying things are bad. And it was early November, and it was obvious that such a long way to go before summer, and ugly winter in Moscow is ahead of us. And then those things happened that stock exchange, what happens every day. So things went wrong everywhere. Whereas Arseny Borisovich put it quite plainly. He says this is the time to find it wisely, how to live a worthy, dignified life in these times of rascals, how to live in a worthy manner, not to allow yourself a hysterics on just refusing to do something. Very much like Lena, you were saying at the Club 2015, tomorrow we still need to sow. Strange, horrible as life could be around us, there is no way we can do without it. And even if you imagine if all those presents somewhere all of a sudden can leave, I cannot imagine. For example, I have nowhere to go and I don't think I should, and nobody is waiting and I don't have money to leave. That's why the objective is we stay here, we live a life here. Well, it's always awful when you don't know what to do. When there is some clarity, then okay, we know. As Comrade Stalin said, we have the objectives, the set goals were set and are clear, so let's do it, comrades. So, Elena Mikhailovna, here we have a wonderful rake, and I do understand that you know about this Club 2015. Oh, you don't know? Then may I share the story briefly with you, because it's a very indicative picture and story. Well, the new year in this Club 2015, it was 3 days ago that we celebrated the new year. What's the whole idea about? It has to do with the topic we stay here, and there's nowhere to go. At that members of 2015 have where to go. They're all very much self-made men, well-to-do, young, healthy, beautiful, all millionaires. But, with the exception of us, yes. But we're not members of this club. As was known, those who made membership fees and those who just sponge on them, just on some occasions, they get guests. So, maybe it was in October 1998, a group of young, very smart, very right managers, not owners, but businesses realized if things carry on like this, one doesn't know where it ends in. Because if those of you who remember 1998, it was Gerashchenko, not Dubinin in the central building, not Primakov, Prime Minister, and so on. So they sort of sat down and decided that they should make it their own business. So we create a club 2015 for year 2015, by which Russia should choose its pathway for development by this time. They created an extremely exciting group, brilliant people, who all developed scenarios of Russia's development. There were many scenarios. Some things, yes, came true and others did not, but there were main 3 scenarios. And excellent authors and literary men wrote their small essays. Sorry, short essays. They were Alexander Kobakov, Alexander Gelman, and Denis Dragonsky. Kabakov wrote Non-Returner 2. Those who are old remember One Who Doesn't Return 1 and what it was like then in the early 1990s. Gelman wrote about the sort of intermediate option, whereas Dragonsky wrote what it should. A person who wrote Denyuska's story, something very happy, joyful. Yes, and we called it, Kabakov writes that you should send your children abroad and leave. The word leave is in a very derogatory manner. Gelman says, okay, we'll stay on, but kids better be sent away. And Dragonsky was saying that we all come back here. Even those who returned and made this mistake, we all come back. And every new year, these young men go older and older, and we're rehearsing as they see in year 2015. So it turns out that for 16, we already saw in the year 2015. This was the last time, I suppose. For that matter, if you go to their website, Club 2015, You will find the names, beautiful names, all beautiful people, very rich, and who didn't live, basically none, yet. And most importantly, you will find songs there, because every year, they are all creative people, they wrote a hymn, an anthem, which was also started, Would Your Motherland Begin With? We didn't know that that would be the most popular song of our people, because it was all first new 1999, and as yet nothing forebode what things would come. And you will read, depending on these anthems, they're all very laughable, very funny, but it turned out that out of all scenarios, major scenarios, it was the one that would not return to. Again, I suppose it's posted website. If you do not find it, then call me, I'll let you know. Get into my Facebook and just post some. Because he even foresaw many things. Everybody thought that the oil prices would continue to grow endlessly because it's a disappearing resource. And they went down almost to zero because the human race invented something else. Who could have thought that? He guessed it back in 1999. Then he wrote that the European civilization, which in fact has made life normal for the half of the world, was not really such a challenge as yet another Russian revolution. You may call it whatever, but the change that took place in Russia, that was the very first stone that many interestings there, but this rake are over here because the scenario of a poisoned rake won most votes, because those people thought, now editor-in-chief of Gazeta Dotru, Sveta Bapaeva, she thought that she really foresaw it all, basically verbatim. So poisoned rake, and regrettably they've become the outcome of this wonderful 15 years. But to enjoy this pleasure, enjoy it, and go to this website, and I guarantee 30 minutes of children's laughter while you cry. But things all ended in poisoned rake. There's nothing to be happy about. But nevertheless, do let us... Again, I'm violating the word that I gave to Vladimir Nikolaevich Vainovich. But I once repented for that, because he asked me not to tell anybody, but I cannot stop. Once at a civic forum, certainly not the whole book, he was reading chapters from his new book, whose name was, I don't remember the exact name, I don't suppose he even invented a name for it, but please don't turn me in for this. Well, this is what I'm going to tell you. Then I telephoned him and repented. The first person in the state and second goss, and Pirli goss, the first person in the state, after he now shops raspberry pelicans to hatch their eggs, because they're laying their eggs but they don't hatch them, so they need to be taught how to do it. So Pirli goss is now, and when he should supposed to say goodbye, do something, then he's changed by the second person in the state. So much how we live away the life in these dark times. But it's good that Vladimir Nikolaevich, although he's 83 years old, but I wish all of us could enjoy such fantasy and such remarkable intuition, literary intuition. I won't tell you anything else, although I remembered many things. But how do we live? People who do not have such excellent talent and who cannot play books, where half of the country will laugh 15% only, because the others will not like it, but nevertheless. I myself do not yet know how I shall continue live in those years, where every time all those years, when this club, as I was returning to Russia from many trips abroad on business, where I spent my vacation, every time I thought, oh my God, how much I want to get home. But not my only family, because they always wait for in their essays, but my what things I do, what I do, and my students do. But I caught myself, but I finally realized that last time where I traveled from Israel, where I underwent quite a difficult operation, but all was quite fine, went fine. I may say that 2 weeks ago I was operated on neck. Can you say? It's imaginable, unimaginable. And for the first time, I thought that I'm not very keen to go home. Not because I want to it was actually a presentation at the school. But that was the decisive, because you looked forward to speaking here at the school. Besides, there's nothing I can do, they don't have the money and whatever, but the weather is so good. And there's not much I can do at home. Because whatever I lived before, the seminars, Golitsyno has the schools. My seminars are almost gone, and to be quite honest, when I wanted to speak in September, I had a talk in Kostroma, and I realized suddenly that I do not quite know what the audience think. Judging by the main question by this author, do they think like myself, or do they think in the opposite way? That means that I cannot touch upon this main question. Okay, I won't. And therefore it's very hard for me to draw my line and urge people to stay here and help those who suffer and so on. And it turned out that there was nothing much I could speak about, because I don't quite understand where is that sort of edge which I cannot, where some people may have crossed it very much like myself, and others, it's not that they didn't reach it, but they think that this is not an edge, it's all laughable and quite nice. Many people who are analyzing today's situation, they acknowledge that they don't quite understand what needs to be done, because certainly the year that is now coming to its end brought to us such dramatic feelings which we didn't expect. What happened? It happened unexpectedly, all of a sudden. Well, certainly there were political scientists who would say, oh, come on. He was carrying this plan since 2004. Well, he may have, but none of us were aware of it. And the hysterics that followed from the TV sets, it's also this sort of high degree tension was quite unexpected. Last time I switched on television before that, maybe it was 2008, and since then I didn't feel I was interested. Yes, I do sometimes have NTV Plus, there are Kino and others. This is something, and American soap serial soaps, I watch them, but this is something. As I was in Israeli, there was a TV set in my room. In Russian it was the only channels 1 and 2. So I got immersed. I do not know. Was it long ago that you watched television, channels 1 and 2? I suppose quite a long while ago, because I'm in sane memory and my sane mind. At home I'm just go radio, on computer, but TV, it's not quite the source of information, where I draw my information from. But this is where I thought, why don't I watch television? I wrote a column about this into Gazeta.ru. It was even published. And what really amazed me. There is no news about Russia whatsoever, in general, whatsoever. None. But what is going on in the currency exchange market? That Mr. Kostin, the head of VTB, requested money from the National Welfare Fund. At the same time, the Forbes publishes, as always, the rating of highest paid managers, top managers in the Russian companies, and there are millions of dollars, really millions, dozens of millions per year as a salary. Nothing much is told about this. In Russia, I heard only two pieces of news about Russia. First, a bus in Thailand with Russian tourists got into the roads and nobody was hurt. And yes, Putin gave a dog, yet another black Labrador. Well, I don't really know when, because of such time events. When does Mr. Putin, will he ever live this life? How will we treat the black Labradors? It seems to me they're everywhere, because he gave so many of them as gifts that I can't give any further. What followed is I watched TV soap operas. Well, my guys, that's something. Well, it's clear. Blondes everywhere. Main characters are all very beautiful. I'm just sharing my impression, because I understand that I will now discover the new world to you. Very beautiful blondes everywhere. One of them was blonde with straight hair, and the other one had curled hair, and it all is below the shoulders, and she was so perfectly curled hair, even after she was raped, and after a night that she spent like she was homeless. She had no refuge, wearing one shoe, but her hair was in an ideal shape. I envied her badly. Then one of them got into prison, the one with straight-haired blonde. The other one with curled blonde hair. She thought she would become a prostitute because she needed to make money to pay for the medication for somebody who was in hospital. So it took me 2 days to get engaged in this. But one soap opera just ended. I looked just only the last two pieces. Well, the messages that it delivers, that get across, that I want to get across for us, many much respected television people. And they're all about very hard Russian female fate. There is a Russian woman's hard lot, and that certainly she deserves a film to be made about her. Of course, it's always in Russia we have this woman who is a sufferer.
Long-suffering woman who overcomes everything, nevertheless, in the face of adversity, and meets a wonderful man. And they live happily ever after. But I was surprised that they're telling us how bad we are. It's amazing. Yeah. And so this message that that it's not fashionable anymore. So this message, so that the channels are giving us, conveying us. So that's in the last 50 years, so I've never met so many bad people like the TV show. It's as if everyone, frames you up, kill the old persons, rape women, kill everyone. Certainly they rape someone who is a virgin. This horrible, disgusting, black mud, then apotheosis of evil. And so I've never seen so much dirt, pouring from the screen. And so everyone is a bad guy. I've never seen so many. So no positive guys, no pious protagonists. So there's only two good guys. So he and she. And even first he was misled. So then eventually he turned out to be a good guy. And then he realized how good she is. And eventually he marries her, and they're so happy. And so there's only one thing, that was one good positive change. All these protagonists So he's a director and the owner of a big manufacturing facility, and he's good. So that was very unexpected. So because there is the evil incarnate that's pouring from these silver screens, and so then a big businessman should definitely be a miscreant, should be a bad guy, and so natural. So one movie was called An Attraction, and the second one was about beautiful life. And so one movie was about prison, and another one was about prostitution. So nothing good is said. So these are our serials. So soap operas, and people watch them day in and day out, non-stop. And so this feeling, so this kind of, so that a man, homo homini lupus est. That's exactly there. It's not that we're friends to each other, but enemies to each other. So these role models, because I've never seen in my life so many bad people that I can see from the screens, on the screen. And so the series, so in the 5 years of life of a certain protagonist, I don't know how is it possible. And so I'm not just telling you about the public and political shows, because they start very so at night in the small hours of the morning, so that no one could see them, could watch them, because if you have to wake up at 7, so certainly you will turn off the TV because you'll be sleeping at that time. And so this political show. So only once I was happy. I watched a very good. So the Alexander Posner dialogue with another person, Alexander Alexandrovich Bahab. So what a wonderful dialogue, excellent dialogue. And if you can find it on the internet, you will love it, because he is smart, intellectual, philosophic. So that's a discussion of two intellectuals, wonderful. But then then there was Peter Tolstoy, so the show Politics. And then there was another guy there, Andrei Nechayev was there, so the former minister of economics in the government of Gaidar. He was the minister of economics for about 9 months only, and for this he was kicked around for the fact that he was there for 5 or 8 months. And then on the Facebook, so they invited him again to the show, but he refused. He said, "No, I don't want to be kicked around. I'm not." But they even invited me for this show when they invited Nechayev. And I concluded that so there was a new signal, new message. Should we invite liberals? So then it's okay to kick them and to humiliate them, to torture them. It's okay. But when I started refusing, so then the editor, a girl, a lady, she was good. Please understand, your opinion is so important for the audience. So this for the public. I said, no, I'm not coming anyway. And because so I'm just told my time is taken up, and I was saying, and then I watched another, Fadeev. Fadeev is the same kind of guy. And so I don't know who was acting as a liberal, but who acted as someone else. But so they were not liberals before. Someone said that. They didn't beat anyone up, but they would select a person with a weighted position, and so then immediately turned him into someone that anyone can kick. And my father, who is very old and very naive, and then he's telling me that probably there are changes, because look, they are inviting liberals to the first channel. So probably you refuse to go, but I think that there are good changes coming, because they're inviting you. So Medvedev invited Maximovskaya to the press conference, and it means that Dost is okay, so it will surviving. Daddy, please understand. But Zygarev was there last year for the interview with Medvedev, but it did not prevent anyone in a month's time to start such horrible hunting. And eventually, you see where this TV channel is now. so Natasha Timakova knows very well that Dost now is actually broadcasting from an apartment. And if you have a chance, at Slon, so wonderful running commentary about how they put together this TV channel in an apartment. How difficult it is because you can't walk around because there is no sound insulation, so then and you cannot. You have to keep quiet. You can imagine just how to put this insulation materials and everything in a tiny two-room apartment in a block of apartments. And is there hope for a liberal turn for warming up? I don't know. I don't see it happening right now, and I don't see any signs. So Jimashko is calling me a misanthrope, but I've never been a misanthrope. I never was a human beings hater. But it's I understood why. My feelings were hurt when I tell everyone that when everyone is telling me that everything is going just to be good. So his difference between me and him, so he's talking like a wise man, like a philosopher, quiet, with equanimity. So the guy who spent most of his life already. So he's talking about long horizons in 40 years, 50 years. Because he's thinking, so then the subject matter of development of mankind, so how these tectonic plates, will collide, how Chinese and Western, European, American civilization will eventually clash, and what will happen to Islam, etc. But I think very pragmatic. So what do I do for money? So where my daughter will have her kids, and this is, as I'm talking about grassroots level, because I stand firmly on the ground, and I need to think about things that are very important, because I'm not 80 and I'm not a wise woman, and I feel uncomfortable. But I understand Naginsky's task. So you need to live these disgusting years with dignity, to read good books. I'm reading good books, and I derive pleasure from reading the book. So the last thing I wanted to tell you, and then we'll open the floor to questions, and I promise to put it on the internet. Recently I got a great present from one of my students from the Club of Regional Journalism, Nikolai Pogadayev from Tomsk. So he sent me a wonderful quality recording of Kaha Bindukidze at the seminar in 2004. Wonderful present when Khodorkovsky was in jail, and Kaha had problems as well. And I listened to about 1 hour and 17 minutes this video footage. I could not. My aide thought. My thought was, so my friend thought that he was that I was watching some satirical program because the audience burst out laughing all the time. But it was serious talk, and so he was saying, just ask me a question that I would want to answer. Kahas was saying, because I will feel that it's important for you to know what I have to say. So start your question with the words. So I haven't slept for a while, and I cannot get to sleep until I know the answer to this question. And then all the questions that were asked, so he refused to answer, because I don't believe that this question will keep you awake at night, because if the question is who is going to be put in jail next, and then he was refusing to answer the question, so because it won't keep you awake at night. And then the guy stood up and said, 2 months ago I got a son was born, my son was born, and I don't sleep at night now because I stay awake, and I'm thinking, what kind of country will I give, he will inherit, what kind of country I will give him. And then Kaha started to answer. It was a hymn of freedom, to freedom. So it was a wonderful monologue about what freedom was. I was hanging on his lips. I could not tear myself off the screen. I was listening non-stop. And I think that we find this radio engineer, and so we'll just clean it up a little bit, we'll cut it, squeeze it a little bit, shorten it, and I will definitely put it on the screen, and we'll make it. So I will show it to my papa. I will give one copy to the school because I haven't heard this hymn for freedom. So that's the only other time. So Mikhail Zhvanetsky, when he celebrated his 80th anniversary, he said, Zhvanetsky said, so as usual, so he's holding, so then he's reading glasses on his nose and his hand outstretched. And so he said, so we were in jail, in Vietnamese jail, not bad. So it was a bamboo, so bamboo cages. So then there were several cages, and so easy. So the rods are quite they're different. But then when I let out, I still understand. So, but freedom is only when between the rods. Not only food comes through, but the whole person should be able to come in between the rods of the cage, and that's what I call freedom. Nemirovskaya gave me a skirt as a present. Wonderful skirt. Thank you, Lena. Just look like her skirt. Okay. Who would like to start? Please. Certainly you. Who else could it be? Introduce yourself. Chechen Republic, Gapur. Good evening. Thank you for coming, and so our conversation was on a good, cheerful note and a positive note. So, but for the first time, just I became sad. It saddened me somehow, nevertheless, and then I understood your quote. When you were saying that you're coming back from Israel for the first time in your life, you didn't want to come back to Russia for the first time in your life. That's what you said. I remember you say that. And my feeling, I got the same feeling for the first time when last year I went. So there was a small, short tour to the Arab Emirates and so Kuwait. I went to Kuwait, and then when I came back to Moscow, so then how people live in was the attitude of the state to its own citizens, and I kind of then walking down the streets and walking around Moscow, everyone is rich and happy, and so I said, then oil. So there lots of oil, and we have oil too, and at the same time I'm kind of an alien among our own people. So 24 hours a day, so they're pumping our oil, and I'm an alien in my own country, and so that's what can we do about that? I feel myself an alien, and so why do we need this ministry for the development of Caucasus? What's the point? Because if we have to work for them because they don't do anything. So this on Caucasian matters. And I'm tired just to answer the same question. Moscow, St. Petersburg, they are the Chechens, and so that we have no hatred to Russians, we have no hatred for Buryats, we have no hatred for anyone. I'm tired. So and then I concluded that the mode for the fashion for idiocy is gaining ground, and I'm tired to tell everyone that the Chechens don't hate Russians. Okay, next. Irina, Evgeny, thank you for very inspiring, very spirited, in spite of the situation that we're all in. And this is an amazing image and very intense image. So then I like that image. There's also the cage through which you can, through the rods of which you can walk through, and that's what is freedom. But in order just to pull these rods apart of the cage, which are just a little bit too tight for us, so we need to use a lot of effort, strength. So we need willpower, so we need intellectual power, we need physical power, we need. And yesterday I had a very interesting conversation with my colleague, so which is very telling about are we ready to make that effort. And so this week we spoke about how, and so this chain of events, a destructive chain of events, how it was unfolding in the last several years in the Russian media, when many publications have been closed down or strong teams went, and then the media turned out to be vapid, and this in many instances the editor. So they said that the editor was fired, and but de facto, so he signed the contract, and so he was paid the compensation, and the editor would go of his own free will, or her, and the same with team. So they conclude an agreement, and then and contingent on their departure. And so if the state gives you that we don't want you to work the way you've been working, and then you understand it will be impossible to work, and you will have to quit. And everyone wants to do somehow, to exist somehow, because we need to do something for money, and we need to. But on the other hand, it's one of the points when we stop fighting. So this fight to pull aside the rods of the cage. So when we compromise, and we have no, our flesh is weak, and we step back, and we cannot do that because we're not courageous enough. We don't fight, stand up and fight. And so we. What's your take? This distance between the rods of the cage is to some extent is our responsibility. So we let the rods of the cage to be frequent. Yes, very deep question. And your question makes you think, makes one think. Everyone gets everyone thinking, because this advice, you can give this advice only to yourself, to pull them aside, and how to pull them aside, these rods. I don't know how. And so to tell anyone, why didn't you fight? Why didn't you try to pull aside? I cannot accept that responsibility, because everyone makes his own decision. And the majority, they choose to resign, because it's part of our national trait. We choose to resign, to get reconciled. And then they have a family, they have kids, so they have mortgage, they have payments to be made. And we're all human beings. And you have to be someone like, you remember the discussion concerning Makarevich and that singer, what's his name, on the tip of my tongue, Garrik Sukhachov. So Makarevich, a rich guy, so because he was so he was performing at corporate events, and now has the right, to go against the main principles of the power. But Sukhachov is a poor guy because he has to earn his bread by the sweat of his brow, and that is why he's afraid to go against the power. And Makarevich is not afraid because he is rich, because they will be turning off the lights and he won't be able to perform. That's why I'd like to comply. But it's your own choice, and you can say like Michael Khodorkovsky, he had the courage to go to jail, and thus he pulled the rods aside. And although he turned to be in jail, And so read his wonderful, illustrious, great, brilliant speech at one of the sessions of a certain institution. So only you can applaud. He's a wonderful, free person, and free person. And some others, I'm sure that many in the government, they are in jail, though they are free. They're out of jail. Although they have all the strobing lights and cool cars and big offices, but they are slaves, right? And unfortunately, neither me nor Lena, no one can give you such advice. Only you decide for yourself. Only for yourself. Tuva. I understand, I know why for many of my friends, so you are an ultimate authority. So could you recommend so a good book to read, so that would bring up my spirits, put me in better spirits, some educational, enlightening book. So I will tell you about two books. One is very so it's very easy to read. Good. These are reminiscences of the Duchess. So something wrong with my memory. Duchess, the memory of Duchess. Okay, when it flows, I will tell you her name. Maria Vasilchikova. Duchess Maria Vasilchikova. She lived through all World War II in Berlin. She lived there all her life. And her parents were high-standing officials. So then the Dukes Vasilchikovs. So they went to Lithuania when it became independent, and then they fled from Lithuania to Berlin because the Soviet Union came to Lithuania, to their mansion. And so they fled, and it's a wonderful, light, great, wonderful description of so there was a lot of resistance of the German society to Nazism. So there was not 12, not 14%, but it was less than 14%. So there was a great deal of resistance to the Hitler regime. So wonderful book, and it was published by our Nasledia publishing house once in the 90s. This is a great book, so this level of resistance. And then read Kluchevsky. I keep repeating, and I am very, because Kluchevsky explains everything. So you can read and read his quotes, and so you can underline. When I was at school, I was underlining some quotes, and so when I had to put certain quote of Gogol, so everything about landscapes, about the rivers, and about the seas. So then the nature of the southern Slavs and the western Slavs, and so the role of climate in development of history, politics, everything. This is amazing. And then I reread Nathan Edelman. So again, another experience of resistance. Yes, and this is wonderful. The best book about Decembrists, this 1825 attempt of uprising. And because when... because if there are so then murky years that we are living through right now, and there were murky years earlier, then we have a lot to learn from them. Or buy 10 discs if there is no time. You can listen in the car, play the discs. So the Irish publishing house produced these CDs. Dmitry Mortushenko, graduate 2003 from Kaluga. So I'm a journalist, and I've been watching Irina's activities for many years, and Yes, you see, I've been watching, but not a special agency. I say, why? So that's an enigma. No, watching, and looking. And that's about the Russian language, because the Russian language is a wonderful language, and we start to talk about legal terms, and so we forget that the legal terms have a different meaning, and unfortunately, it's very sad that they have a double connotation. And I wanted to, some time ago, when there was an unhappy happening in my region. So when the initiative that some doctors were persecuted, and Irina helped me a lot. So when these doctors were persecuted, so a lot of media came, the federal media came, so that time it was very difficult, and Irina organized, and the media came and they covered this event, and she was telling everyone that she started to describe in her live journal the situation, then her friends from the media started to call her. Eventually she attracted the attention to a small Kaluga Oblast, small rayon, small district town. And she addressed that issue successfully. And for me, it became a recipe for action, because sometime later, when something happens, so they're closing down a sports school. I'm head of the federation, so they closed down the sports school, because the governor said that wrestling is bad, because wrestling grows only bandits and drug addicts, and so that's why the governor wanted to close down our school. So you need to go dancing. And then I opened up a studio in my apartment, and from my apartment I started to do running commentaries and post them on internet. At that time Facebook appeared, lots of friends, so they contacted me, and so then 5 handshakes to the president, and it worked. So then it kept. They haven't closed it down, but certainly they bullied me anyway, so they framed me up, the libel case, and certainly I was rehabilitated, I was acquitted. So, but the libel case was framed, and I was framed for a libel case, and then the attorney general, the attorney apologized to me actually. So I followed in the same way, and then they even brought in the drugs, so in my church, and so selling that, accused me of selling drugs, and but I'm listening to the address of the president. So the wording is right, but in reality everything is just the other way around. It's diametrically opposite, but the wording is okay. So then a small audience, 150 people plus internet. And I think that conveying the truth, delivering the truth, is our mission, our main mission. Yeah, because good, because courage is always the price that life demands for granting peace, and so there's certain some don't want to make that sacrifice. And some have no guts to make the sacrifice, but some say that whatever the price, but I will make that sacrifice. And so we don't have so much strength. We don't agree that the Russian language is such that agent has a bad connotation. And so then the agent and the functions of the agent, even war an agent, so it's incompatible, it's impossible. That something needs to be done. But it's not as easy as it sounds, and I fully realize that you need to look at the person. When you look in the eyes of a person, and I keep watching, and I think that we're suffering, and so that someone is looking at us, and then eventually so they understand that someone is inspired by our suffering and by our resolution, by our resolve, and eventually people are not afraid. And so they lost that fear, but the moment they start laughing, they stop being afraid, and then they stand up for themselves. And then at the civil forum we're saying that so then we, instead of being on the defensive, we should be on the offensive. we need to be proactive, and we should feel dignity, and through so reach out your hand to your friends, because if you reach, you pass this positive contagion to another person, and that's how we make our case.
Only a narrow circle of friends and colleagues which gets wider thanks to seminars like this, thanks to social networks. But the only thing is for us to try and reach. No more. When one talks to students and of course we cannot talk to high school students, so you should not involve students into politics, as is the general line. A country which needs to be changed is this country, because to live better and to be better, if you want to be a better person, then you often decline compromise in the material aspects and the important things. You do not give up on your ideals. And in these cases, it is very often leads to a situation when you stop living better. You can no longer live better, but you have to be a better person. Unfortunately, in this sense, a sacrifice is the word, and what is important is that to be a better person and to live a better life should become compatible. Russia should become a country where being a better person and living a better life should not contrast each other, without drawing each other into intrigues but unfortunately the formulas have not changed, but the people and the circle of people which we are dealing with has become more narrow. I told you about Kostroma, not for no person. No. Often there are people that I can feel think very differently, but I do not wish to be persuading everybody. There are fewer people that you sit and talk to simply because they're. Let me quote one other person. This is Vladimir Mirzoev, a film director, a remarkable person, who told me once in an interview. I asked him, why did he go to Canada in the beginning of the 90s? That I could understand, but I could not understand why did he get back in 1995. That was difficult for me to understand. And he replied that he was very much bored in Canada, that he was led a very comfortable life, but Russia is a country of such intensive existential tension. That's what he said. That it actually bristles off everything redundant, and one either becomes a stronger person and a sincere, candid person in Russia, or else that person is stops to be a human. So I liked this phrase very much. He said, "This is a country of high existential tension." Елена Kutsubina from Bryansk. I cannot say that there is one question that I have thought for a very long time. And talking to young people, to young students, this question is often posed, and especially in the light of the later events in the Ukraine. this question is gaining even more relevance because I'm often told that, or I'm often asked, am I not a patriot? And then I ask myself, who are patriots? What is patriotism? So for you, who are patriots for you? Are there categories of people whom you would classify as patriots, even if they're wrong? Well, of course, I can talk about patriotism. That's fine. That's allowed if I give the names. Pyotr Chadaev is a great patriot who said that you cannot love your motherland with your eyes closed and my father, Evgeny Yasin, a mad Jew, as I might say, who never thought about leaving the country for a moment. And I told my daughter, don't ever think for a moment until your grandfather is alive. Do not even think about going somewhere else. He just loves this country, and he has been doing this throughout his life in a most constructive way. I'm a patriot. I love Russia, and it's quite honest. I never want to go anywhere. But and I like traveling in Russia. On a Thursday, I met Lev Schlossberg. He is a patriot. He is a hero. These graves of the paratroopers of Pskov. He disseminated this knowledge. So I agreed with him that I would come to visit him in Toropets, in Pskov, in Sebish, in summer if we're all alive. My grandfather was taken POW in these places in 1941 and then died in the concentration camp 6 months later. And Lev Schlossberg will be my tour guide there. So this is much more interesting to me than any foreign travel. I'm not trying to object, but I would like to quote Saltykov-Shchedrin for a moment. What a bitter country Russia is. It must be loved. Well, I understand what is meant. It's a bitter country. It's true. We live here, and we're trying to do something to make it a better place. What can be done? I have stopped taking part in any political councils, party committees, or anything. The only council that I'm a member of is called the Council for the Social Assistance under Minister Olga Golodyets. And one of these Hercules exploits that we were able to introduce a change into the law for the invalid children. And if one deals with the rehabilitation, then by the old criteria, that such a child is not an invalid. But because in that case, rehabilitation would not be paid. And rehabilitation does extend life, but of course one can say that that this child would die by the age of 20. But this is not something. But that's a human being, with parents. And of course, we realize that every day of that child's life is important to the parents. So we have been able to introduce these changes into the law, according to which these children which are not, for which it is not clear that apparent that they're terminally sick. They have been ascribed with the status of being invalid, and this has made it possible to finance their rehabilitation. But indeed, I am quite. I am not a part of any political declarative, councils or meetings. Ilya Savchenko, alumnus of 2010. Thank you for this meeting. When you spoke about the Russian mass media in almost an ironic way about Channel 1, but this does not start today. I remember the Soviet Union. I was a boy. I was watching the Soviet TV channels. They were ideological, but they're quite intellectually challenging. And coming home, listening to the radio, watching TV in the first grades of the school, I could see how the TV was getting dumber and dumber, more and more obtuse, and you could see that happening. The education was also degenerating. When I was a student, and then when I became a professor, I saw that the value of knowledge was gradually eroded. So I have a question, because you have been a part of the educational establishment. So what needs to be done for the value of critical mind to be brought back into the education? Well, I think that if I were the director of a plant, I would have started with the teaching the establishments where teachers are being prepared. I would have had very high stipends or salaries, because a teacher, the way a teacher is the starting point for all education. So naturally, I have been very happy child, and I had my mother and father, and so the intellectual level and in the intellectual atmosphere in the family was quite stimulating. But with that said, I remember the teachers at my school. Let us say Maya Fyodorovna for the Russian literature, who was dismissed from the school because she was reading Vladimir Aksionov with us. And this was a school in the Perovo district of the city of Moscow, quite a humble district. And there was also a history teacher who said to my mother that I shall teach your children to love Leonid Brezhnev in the same way as we loved Iosif Stalin. And after that, this was the last time my mother went to school. So there were different teachers. When you come to some of the Moscow schools, and when you see some of the teachers who are extremely gifted and talented, I think that these should be the paragons. But this is a very specific thing. And then you might ask a question, but who will be taking this tradition down? But I agree with one thing. There are a lot of primitive things which are getting into our lives. But other more global things are also changing. Let us take my children, my daughter and my son-in-law. I do not know if their child, when they have a child, if he or she would be able to write longhand. And I'm telling them some basic things. That you don't have to use the computer all the time. You have to teach a child when you have a child to write. But of course, I mean, I'm not trying to be peevish, but I'm just trying to say that globally many things are changing, and my children try to teach me a lot more often than I'm trying to teach them, because I don't like the electronic gadgets, and they're trying to teach me, but that's what we have. Andrei Zaitsev from Bryansk. 3 months ago, I had a daughter who was born, and now I hardly have any sleep. Lately, we have been told that there is a businessman in Donetsk who was blackmailing Kiev and trying to get the ports in Odessa. And eventually we have in Donetsk what we have. So my question with respect to the Russian Federation, we have the 2015 club. I've read through the list of the members of this club. We have a problem with, say, the Dozhd, the Rain TV channel, which is currently broadcasting from a one-bedroom apartment. Why are the Russian businessmen not supporting these initiatives? I will tell you, the Russian businessmen are afraid. Each one of them, if a businessman wanted he would come, as Khodorkovsky was told. When are you crazy? You have tens of thousands of people working, and I worked for Yukos, and I know that many people from the top management are indeed claiming him for what we trusted you. They're afraid. The Russian businessmen are afraid. I know one person, Dmitry Zimin, who is not afraid, but he's a pensioner. He was able to put this money into the dynasty endowment, and he is able to do something through this fund, the endowment. And these are all young people. They're afraid to lose their business. That's it. It's a fear. It's a fear. That's why they're not supporting any civics initiatives. No other reason. And generally speaking, it is extremely difficult to confess that one is afraid. I shall never forget how Arkady Volsky said when Mr. Khodorkovsky was in prison. When Mr. Volsky said on TV, "I know how was this was all done, but I'm afraid because I have grandchildren." And when Arkady Volsky, a man of that scale, almost a dreadnought of the Russian politics, when he says that he fears for something, then this is, of course, a major confession. We have 10 minutes. Igor Khoroshilo from Rostov region. Mikhail Prokhorov, it is said, he stands up when he talks to Mr. Putin on telephone. Well, we all look into the future, and we all know that the graphs of history are totally imminent. Do you know that? Do you think that the elites will break apart? Well, I cannot tell you anything about this. I think that those people who could potentially be against what is happening, those who could be, who are better versed in the economic matters, these people are encountering a dilemma. This is something that I was once told by Yegor Gaidar when I was his assistant at one time, around 2005, and I was telling him, why are you helping these people? Why are you saving them? He told me, I saw my country's demise once. I don't want to say it twice. So it is a great and a very difficult conundrum how to differentiate between a country and a government. I would not be surprised to see that many people who are, so to say, helping the government think that they're saving the country, or indeed they're saving the country. So it's one more question. A colleague from Voronezh. Georgi Matsuga from Voronezh. Mrs. Yasina, you spoke about the rehabilitation of invalids. Are there programs for adults, those who seem to be fine, but they have hypertension disease knocking at the door? Well, if somebody has an invalid program, then there is there's some help, but an adult who has hypertension must, I think, lead a better life, or resort to the help of medicine. And in no country such rehabilitation programs exist unless you have invalidity. The last question, probably. Yeah. Sergei Gogin. I just wanted to thank you, Irina Yevgenyevna, for the book that I read 2 years ago. It was published by the Corpus Publishing House, which is, I think, is an anthem of dignity, an unrhymed anthem. It's a very powerful book. It's a book which says that when something happens to you, you should not ask a question, why have I deserved it, and why is it coming, and why is this stone hitting me? The question to be asked is, where do we go from here? Even if something has broken in the body, or a person can do so many things, and this creative aura is what I would like to thank you for. Yes, this is my only book. Yes. No, I wrote one other book, children's book, but it's a book about invalids. It's called it's called A Human with Human Abilities. We are always happy to see Irina Yevgenyevna, and she comes to the school every year or even twice a year. I think that Sergei has said the most important words for this session. We have met Irina Yasina, and we admire her fortitude. And we wish her a great continuation of her creative work. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, friends. I'm very moved by this applause. This is you can't imagine how pleased I am. But what I would like to remind you is freedom. Freedom is what we stand for. We shall resume in 30 minutes.